Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Winter Championships. This is game number 1 in a best-of-9 series between H2O and LordRaphael for the grand finals of the Winter Tournament. These are two very, very strong players indeed, and H2O is possibly one of the best players that has come to Age of Empires 3. Certainly did compete in the 2007 and won the 2008 World Cyber Games for Age of Empires 3, the Asian Dynasties, and has had many very, very strong tournament performances throughout the years, during the Hope Clan tournaments, during the PK Clan tournaments, and of course in previous ESOC tournaments. Let's start with him. Here he is in the south of the map in the colour blue, playing as indeed the Aztecs. That is our first matchup. We're going to start with plenty of wood there, 300 wood starts, so we're going to be seeing possibly a trading post from him, maybe, or perhaps just the market house and fire pit start. But, of course, I am joined by Zuter, as always, who is going to introduce our opponent, I suppose.
Yeah, we've got LordRaphael spawning on the upper left-hand side of the map, playing the Aztec civilization as well. LordRaphael, compared to H2O and the accolades that you just laid down for him, relatively unknown, I would say, compared to H2O. LordRaphael, a newer player, and kudos to him for getting this far. Huge name that he's up against right now in H2O.
Yes.
And I'm excited to see this match unfold. Best of 9. We're going to settle in for a long series. Aztec game number 1. Like I mentioned right before we started, this is a strange matchup. I'm very curious as to why H2 would want to play an Aztec mirror on Siberia, but he's just sticking with the mirror premise, going to try and follow LordRaphael everywhere he goes, and we'll see how it ends up paying off. I've mentioned it before, when playing against H2O, perhaps your best option is to put him out of his comfort zone, do something a little bit strange in game number 1, and that is exactly what we're seeing LordRaphael do, opting for the Aztec choice in game number 1, and we'll see where it lands him as a result.
Yeah, Aztec a strange pick, certainly on Siberia, but yeah, H2O definitely, I imagine, throughout this entire series is going to be trying to mirror his opponent. We've said, I've said his accolades, the things that he's won and the tournaments he's gone to and all of these things. A very, very strong player, and his strength is mechanically. He's very good at controlling his units, very good at macroing his economy and micro and all of these things. And, of course, those skills will shine through to the absolute in a mirror matchup. And I think LordRaphael, something like that. LordRaphael, to a large extent, has dictated what this game is going to be, and he knows that H2O will probably follow him around no matter what civilization he picks. He's going to be, of course, picking the Aztecs here. We do have 110 wood pickup, an absolutely huge amount of wood going to LordRaphael. He's going to be very, very happy about that, Zua.
Yeah, that's a really good one. If you take a look at the other treasures that have been taken, slightly offset by the fact that H2O has picked up a 50 wood treasure and an 80 food treasure as well already, but certainly this map has some absolutely insane wood treasures, and LordRaphael picking up the granddaddy of them all, that 110 wood treasure. Plus the extra white tiger, which is 135 hit points and 15 hand attack that can't be ignored when it comes to fighting and continuing to take other treasures around the map. So a really nice start for him, a super nice treasure, and he's got to be happy with that.
Yep, $2 does come in from I Am Soldier, and sadly I can't actually read any messages. I don't think I will be reading messages for the rest of this tournament because they're very hard to look at and they can be quite distracting, so I am sorry about that. But plenty of money coming in. Of course, this tournament is brought to you by ESO-community.net, and all of the money raised will be going to future tournaments. We are very, very grateful for the community's generosity, crowdfunding these tournaments. Going for a 40 wood treasure there is H2O with his Masterless Samurai. Nice pickup, and of course the Tiger. He is also up to the next age, and we do see a market coming down out of him. No military building just yet, but of course we'll have to see what his first shipment will be before we understand anything about what he has in mind to be doing during this game. But LordRaphael also up as well. And yes, an Aztec mirror. An interesting game to begin with, and I imagine that is going to foreshadow the rest of the series. We do have another $15 donation. I think I will read out the message for that. Give overlay, please, Team Rafa. # don't tell the boss. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, we had some incidents in previous streams where there was an overlay up on the screen and no one could see the game going ahead of us. But Zuta, do you want to tell us about what's going on? Both players have sent 700 wood as their first shipment, and I'm sure that tells us something, right?
Yeah, so we've got 700 wood coming out of both players. Also interesting to note that we have fast age-ups coming out of both players starting off the game. But as a result, both of these players putting down very, very defensive war huts. You can tell both players are kind of in the mode where you're feeling out your opponent. You don't want to do anything too stupid, too aggressive. It's game number 1 in a very long series. This is the point where you're just kind of seeing what your opponent is going to bring to the table. Make sure he's not going to do anything too crazy. Play it safe, and that's what we see here out of both players so far. Very controlled play, defensive 700 wood starts, H2O sending 5 villagers, and we'll see whether or not LordRaphael opts to do the same. Indeed he does, and I think we're just going to see a fairly economic, long Age 2 play here where maybe it'll come to a head with big masses of coyotes like we saw in the previous weeks.
Yeah, Coyote Runner's definitely in queue for the time being there. 5 do pop out for LordRaphael. I think you're absolutely right. Big Coyote mass for both players, I would imagine. LordRaphael does not have 5 Duba the Pet Monkeys. Duba in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. But H2O absolutely does. 5 monkeys are going to make quite a bit of difference in any fight that does happen. You know, they have 108 hit points each, so they're going to be sponging up several hits, several slashes from a Coyote Runner. And considering Coyote Runners only have 150 HP each, these Pet Monkeys definitely a nice pickup. H2O spending the time to pick up a treasure there that a lot of the time players will often overlook. You know, it's fairly difficult to get and things like that. 3 Warrior Priests do come out for H2O, and it'll be interesting to see what he switches that Fire Pit to. Perhaps he's going to generate XP for the progression of his shipments, get them out sooner over time, or maybe he'll invest more in the late game and have it spawn more Warrior Priests so that things like other Warrior Priests, other Warrior Priests can spawn and set up the late game. We do have, by the looks of it, a $2 donation from Jordan Smith. Thank you very much for that. Of course, going to the next tournament. What do you think is going to be set on this Fire Pit then?
Yeah, so this is, I think we're going to see something very similar to what we saw in the Aztec Mirror Manchuria between H2O and LordRaphael, and we'll see the decision point here when we see the next Warrior Priest and whether or not we see either side switching to the Warrior Priest stance. Because if we recall what happened last week, H2O switched over to the Warrior Priest stance, and yes, there comes out 1. So it's confirming the fact that he is switched over to the Warrior Priest stance, and as a result, he's going to be gearing up those Warrior Priests here immediately. If you recall what happened last week, both sides masked coyotes. H2O switched very early to the Warrior Priest stance, and then when they came to a head to start fighting, he had significantly more Warrior Priests, and as a result, his attack dance was that much better. And,
$30 from I Will Spank You, hoping for a spring tournament. Thank you very much. I'm absolutely certain that there will be a spring tournament. And $2 from Fighting Frenchman as well. Thank you guys. But yeah, Coyote Mass possibly on the cards. Is that's what we're thinking right now. Both players identical build orders so far. Look at that, 4 villagers coming out as well. A very, very economic Aztec game there. In coming up for us, so and you know that's to be expected perhaps on Siberia with the starting tower as well, and plenty of resources all around the map. Always sets you up for a longer game perhaps.
Yeah, and I'm just watching the mirrored builds so far, and H2O is ever so slightly ahead. His first shipment is coming out slightly earlier. His Warrior Priest progression is slightly ahead. Just everything is slightly ahead. If you look at like the populations, his coyotes are coming out slightly earlier, and I'm wondering if we're going to have a situation where at some point he's going to push in with one of those cards being slightly ahead, and it will be very impactful. If you take a look at the fire pits, we can see he's up to 6 Warrior Priests. LordRaphael only at 5, so he's slightly ahead. Here comes out LordRaphael 6th, and both sides playing so scared back in the base. Just, I mean, look at where LordRaphael is standing. He's just standing in the back.
Zuta, we do have Coyote Runners approaching. I did see a red tiger that was low on hit points walk through the blue player's base. I think Red was trying to work out what was going on. He probably absolutely had it in his mind that defensive coyotes were coming out in this economic style that we were mentioning. But of course, you always want to make sure if you do perhaps notice less units, maybe you see a 600 coin treasure on the floor, you'll know that perhaps your opponent is going to be aging up. And of course, you can eke out a huge huge advantage over your opponent. I say eke out, but yeah, if you can sneak on up to the next stage, definitely. Yeah, Coyote Combat does arrive, and I think that signals go time for H2O. I think he's going to leave all these extra units in the back there. He wants to engage in a fight first and perhaps bring them in when his opponent, has already engaged and is snared and can't get away. Looks like we're going to get pretty close here. Of course, both players switch into the attack dance almost immediately there. Here comes Duba, and this is a big brawl, right? This is all about making sure that the units are fighting, and
yeah, it's Coyote Combat just came in for LordRaphael, but is it going to be too late? We can see villagers coming into the fray here to try and tank as well. The graphic staying very, very even, 24 to 21. Everything is fairly even. It looks like
Jaguar Prowler Knight's going to join the fight by the looks of it. Those are going to add in some really needed extra damage. By the looks of it.
Man.
Of course, with the times 3 multiplier. $2 from Interjection, apparently. Thank you very much. That's coming from me. I'm very good at doing lots of different things all at once. It looks like Red convincingly won that fight, despite not having Coyote Combat shipment arrive just in time. What was going on, Zuter? Did he just have more units?
So he pulled some villagers into the fray as well. Tanked a little bit there. If you look at the economic unit population, it actually looks like LordRaphael fell behind slightly there as a result of that. You can see 39 versus 36. And H2O actually, we've got our first deviation in build. 5 Coyote Runners coming off for LordRaphael, and it looks like he's going to swing it back the other way and try and timing push against his opponent, whereas H2O is sending 600 coin to do one of two things: either start mixing in Puma Spearmen, which looks like is going to be the option, or trying to age. But with the Pumas starting to come out, looks like he's going to try and improve his composition and get into a situation where he's got a little bit harder of a counter to deal with these Coyote Runners.
Yeah, he does. That is the case. Puma Spearmen definitely very good against Coyote Runners with their ×5 bonus. So I think Red is gonna. Is he gonna engage? If he's stuck, he's gonna not want to. He's not gonna want to take this fight with Puma Spearmen involved. Though he does have 3 Jaguar Prowler Knights of his own. I think this one might be H2O favored with the Puma Spearmen. We do have $5.47. Coming from Dinah. All my ladies, it's Dinah, she says. Thank you very much for the $5.47. Very generous of you. And looks like we do have a blue coming out on top for this fight.
It's so close, yeah. It's pretty close. There still are the Jaguar Prowler Knights in there, which actually wreck everything that H2O has. They do well against heavy infantry and coyotes, so it's a little bit closer than it looks. But yes, it is going to be H2O cleaning up this fight near his base. Those Jags sticking around right to the end, but was able to clean up the fight and pulls a fairly significant military and maybe more importantly compositional lead as a result of that. Going to be able to pick up these Mace Holton in the fight as more Pumas starting to reinforce from the back.
Yeah, he's also considerably ahead in terms of economic unit population as well. 48 villagers is H2O compared to his opponent on 40. That might be a result. Let's switch on over to economic units and take a look. Yeah, he's got 10 warrior priests. His opponent only has 3. Only has 7, so that is 3 less. And of course his opponent did lose some villagers in that engagement earlier as well. And perhaps the macro, H2O, a very good player, always going to be on top of everything mechanically related, is always going to make sure his villagers and queue will never miss one. He's the player that can absolutely do that. So at this point, let's switch on over to text completed as well. Looks like we do have Lumber's Ceremony completed for LordRaphael, so he does have that up on his opponent. Of course, both players have hunting dogs. There is no steel traps for the Aztec civilization, so they won't be getting that. But in terms of military unit population here, we do have a $2 donation from the Big Penis. The Big Penis. Kappa Pride in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. But what's going on here then? We do have H2O 10 units up.
Yeah, and the important thing is he's identified the location that LordRaphael is hunting with. He jogged over here with his coyote, saw that the fact was true that his opponent was gathering over here, and as a result, he knows where the next high priority target for him to hit is, and it's over here on top of this hunt. If he can get up the composition to be able to deal with that, he's going to be in a really good location. Similarly, he has to be a little bit careful. We've got some pretty big raids coming in here from the side, and he is a little bit out of position with his army. He needs to do one of two things. He either needs to come over here and push, or he needs to go back and defend this raid, because LordRaphael, being much more actively out on the map, could start to get into a situation where lots of vills die.
Yeah, and he might be able to even up that villager composition. What am I talking about? Villager count here. Currently very far ahead for H2O, and you know, that's a really good thing for him. But you know, could lose quite a lot here. Looks like H2O is going to push him. We do have $2 from Fighting Frenchman. Thank you very much for that. Lots of Coyotes going to be hitting here. Looks like Red going to be losing some villagers of his own. There's a few Puma Spearmen. They're going to take a lot of work, but by the looks of it, those villagers, you know, they were fairly close to that tower. H2O just choosing to lose only a few villagers as he walked back. It was okay with that loss, knowing that a lot of LordRaphael's units would be out of the fight and would not be able to engage here. So choosing to lose some villagers, knowing there'll be less units in this fight, and he'll be able to take this victory more convincing, take this resource location where there's hunts and coin mines and this war hut that he'll be able to kill. And it looks like he is going to come out on top in this fight by the looks of it. There are villagers fighting here as well, and they're going to help even up the odds. But you know, as soon as all the military units go down, they're very, very exposed here, and he's going to lose them.
Yeah, and this is looking to be almost perhaps game ending here. The Coyote threat has kind of been shut down here by H2O. He's managed to catch out the raid, and importantly, like we saw, look at the economic unit population after that fight, 44 to 29. H2O now in a commanding lead as a result of what has happened over here on the left side of LordRaphael's base.
Yeah, I really like H2O's decision there to just go straight in for that war hut, knowing that he would lose a few villagers, but that would be okay. And some newly trained Coyote runners that came out of the war hut here, they came to these villagers' defense whilst they were there. Looks like 4 Coyote runners are going to head back over to this location. Cheeky raid, he's possibly not going to expect his opponent to hit in the same place. We do have 2 idle villagers that he is going to find there, and looks like he completely missed them. And that is maybe... Okay, well, fair enough. It looks like they're going to go around the back. Maybe they will get some villagers or something like that. Let's take a look at this point. Okay, so you mentioned that, yeah, economically is very far ahead. They're over 15 villages ahead and about even military unit population. But as the game goes on, of course, that is going to become more H2O favored as he has more resources coming in from his economy for him to be able to make reinforcements and things like that. Some Coyote runners in base do catch the raid. They're not going to be able to kill off any warrior priests, which they were trying to target. Let's switch on over to the economic units and see what we have here. 10 warrior priests for H2O and 9 for LordRaphael. So fairly even there. I believe the maximum is 10. And once that is at 10 each, of course, that's also another resource, or income of resource, you know, the speed at which you can generate XP, or train units, or perhaps use the war dance, which will be very, very useful in the fights and will always be being used by these players. Looks like we do have an engagement, Zuter.
Yeah, here they come. Both sides. This is just going to be a slam. I mean, H2O's just got this. He's got a way better composition. Doesn't have his war chief in this fight, but it's not going to matter. Both sides bringing over their villagers, which is going to try and help soak some damage. But when the dust settles here, H2O is going to have the significantly better remaining force. We can see he's even focusing down on some of the villagers here. Going to be able to clean up all the Coyotes. 3 more Puma Spearmen coming in from the right side for H2O. Going to be able to help poke down the remaining Coyote runners. And as I said, when the dust clears here, we can see the graphics starting to swing heavily in H2O's favor. The villagers going down. LordRaphael has resigned.
Game number 1 does go to H2O in this Aztec mirror. We do have a $2 donation from Hung Daddy 12 Inches. Of course, referring to me. Absolutely. Thank you very much for the $2 there, Hung Daddy. Absolutely. Very generous of you, of course. This will go to eso-community.net. That is where this tournament is brought to you by. But for those of you watching, perhaps in a VOD, you're a random person, never seen some Age of Empires 3 action, it's your first time. What's going on here? Yes, eso-community.net. That is a great place to go and look. But let's talk about this game for a moment. The reason players are getting their villagers involved here is, of course, each villager does have 150 hit points, and if you get the market upgrades, can go higher than that. You think about it, a Coyote runner has 180 hit points or 150 when they're not upgraded by Coyote Combat card. Then these villagers, you know, if they're attacked rather than a Coyote, that's going to sponge a lot of HP, and they're going to soak up some damage, which military units aren't. And of course, this game at the moment is very much about resource control, controlling locations to gather resources from. What use is a villager if you can't be on the map gathering because you can't defend those villages? So players will bring in villagers if they're nearby to help soak up. But of course here, H2O does come out on top, and now all these villagers in this location are going to die. Game number 1 does go to H2O. Anything else to add, Zuter, before we get into this next match? But this is a best of 9 series, and for those of you listening right now, Game 1 will be available on my YouTube channel, and the next game in this series, if you want to continue watching this, that will be available on the ESOC YouTube channel. Do check that out. There will be a link in the description. Zuter, what else do you have to say here?
Yeah, I just want to briefly look at the villager graph, because I think it tells the story of this game very, very well. If you look at the Villa graph, H2O is slightly ahead in all of his progressions. You can see his 5 villager shipment comes slightly earlier. His 4 villager shipment comes slightly earlier. And then you can even tell by this graph when the warrior priest dancing finished for H2O, right? Look at 10 minutes and 22 seconds. Obviously switched over to fertility dance. And look at how he ramped up the villager count after that. And as a result, got that nice beefy difference in economic unit population and never looked back from there.
Yeah, I really like that. You know, he gets his 10 warrior priests out, and suddenly from there he can really ramp this Aztec eco up into the sky, and that's absolutely clearly the case, as Zuter mentioned there. So really nice to point that out. You don't get to see that during the game. It's only visible from the post-game graph, I suppose. But again, that does conclude game number 1. The victory does go to H2O. Let's get into game number 2.